Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 of Random Dude on the Internet Talks About Deep Life Shit. Um, First off, I am really blown away by the response from yesterday. Just want to say thank you to everyone. It so many people um, really said a lot of nice things. Uh, First off, thank you to everyone who followed. I don't have it set up with all the graphics yet to where it shows this person followed or whatever. Um, and so, I was also really focused talking yesterday and trying to make sure I was getting through everything and making all my points and having like a really good first day. Um, but I really feel the need to say thank you for everyone who followed. A lot of people messaged me. Some people actually told me interesting stories and felt they understood what I was trying to do a little bit better, a little bit more about who I am, what I'm trying to do, not just here, but in other aspects of my life, like what I do on Nexus, which most of you watching early on know me from. And yeah, it was extremely humbling, and I just really want to say thank you again. Also, thank you to everyone who's joined the Discord and has participated so far. And I am trying to help people through these streams and also the work I do one-on-one with people and all that kind of stuff. But I think beyond that, it's about building a positive community that is helping one another and isn't just about me. And again, going back to, you know, Nexus and what the merchants do with Merchant Midnight Madness, uh, if you play that game, you know that I've said a number of times that, we might be the stewards of this, but it's really about everyone, that everyone who comes. There is no this thing without all of you. It's not about me. It's not about the people running it or anything like that. It's about a community that comes together in a positive way, that's encouraging to one another, that helps one another, that has fun together. And, you know, it's, well, that may be a fun way to hang out and relax on a Saturday night. What I envision for this community and the Discord and everything is really a community of people who are focused on trying to be the best version of themselves and thus helping themselves and others and thus making the world better. And, this is only day 2, but if I had some great big vision for this, it's about that. And just because I am the person talking right now on the microphone, that doesn't mean that it's about me. It's about all of you. So please join the Discord. Thank you to everyone who already joined. The more people that are participating, the more fun we can have, the more supportive we can be, the better. Yes, today I decided to make Mr. Oberon hang out with me. He was the random bark yesterday that we all heard on the stream. So he has to lay there and chill out for a little bit while I do today. A few other points before I get started. I've gotten some really good constructive criticism and feedback on like the video quality and the lighting and everything like that. I've turned on some more lights today, and I also zoomed out the camera a little bit, so hopefully it's not as grainy. I'm going to mess with this and the graphics and everything a little bit more next week, but it's really important, I think, that I generally stick to doing this every day, and I just did not have time to mess with that yesterday or before today's thing. I can look at that over the next few days and hopefully make it better next week. Going forward, I'd really like to do this starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. This week has been a little weird, and I've been starting a little bit behind that the past 2 days because it's Pacific time for me up until Sunday because I live in Arizona and we don't do daylight savings time. It'll be 1 p.m. going forward next week, which will be way easier for me to be on time for. So hopefully I'll be a little bit more on time with this. But I do intend to also, hopefully, I might stream MMM on Saturday night or other games or things like that. So we'll see how it goes. But I will try to make the tech setup a little bit better. Hopefully you can all hear me okay at least, and generally see me and the dog. And it's good enough to get started with, and we'll keep making it better as time goes on. So, with that all out of the way, today is going to be a little bit more relaxed. I thought there was a chance yesterday that no one would show up, that I'd be talking to myself, there'd be no chat, no people to interact with, and so I was like, all right, I got to fill a lot of space, so I planned out a lot of the things I wanted to say. I think we can be a little bit more relaxed and wing it a little bit going forward, and hopefully I can interact with the chat more if people are asking questions or anything like that. So if you have questions as I'm talking, go ahead and ask them, and hopefully I'll catch it. I'm still trying to balance between talking and making a point, but keep my attention over here, and also I'm kind of keeping an eye on Discord over here, and there's monitors all around with shit going on and notes up there, so my attention's a little bit diverted, but hopefully I'll catch what you say and be able to interact with you. Alright, so Aviana, member of the Discord, many of you probably know from Nexus, and if you don't, I would strongly advise hanging out with this person because she's ultra positive. I think it's really impossible almost to not feel good and have a positive vibe around her because she's so happy and joyous, and I think is really a positive addition to our community, both this thing here with the Discord and also Nexus if you play that game. When I asked, what would you like me to talk about, she said the power of walking away. And this gets into what I talked about yesterday a little bit, which I'll reiterate as I get into it regarding having a choice, and it really being the last freedom that we have as humans is to decide how we're going to react to something. And so I want to kind of get into, let's say, the micro of that, where it's like day to day as these little situations come up, what we might do to make better choices if we're currently not making good choices. But then also on a macro level, how does that affect us when we're kind of stuck in situations? And some other people I know, Kyra mentioned that, where we're not just talking about like maybe there's a confrontation in a grocery store or something, but more when you have a situation in life that is a much bigger deal and it's not just a one instance kind of thing. So I want to address both of those because I think it's important to kind of address things on both levels. As I went into yesterday, I certainly think as far as overcoming trauma goes, you have to do some really deep, big work, right? I don't think Band-Aids really truly fix that. They can help, they can alleviate, they can help you manage things like that, but if you really want to heal, again, like the root of a tree so that the rest of the tree is healthy, all the branches and everything else, so your thoughts, your actions, etc., you really have to make sure the root system is healthy and healed. If it's rotten, everything, the rest of the tree is rotten too. But there are different kinds of people, and different things work for different people. And while I often gravitate towards very big picture things, big ideas, I'm definitely a big picture person. There's other people who are very detailed. They are interested more in concrete things and steps and things like that. So, I want to make sure that both types of people are kind of taken care of as best I can in what I'm saying. I'm not going to be able to be the person for everyone. Maybe there's another person on Twitch who is a better fit if you're struggling with these kinds of things, and that's okay. I'm not trying to appeal to everyone, but I am trying to give a little bit of something to everyone, not just so that I can hopefully affect as many people as possible, but also I think it's useful. Like, even if I do kind of gravitate towards the bigger things, those practical things I was talking about yesterday, where it's like, yes, literally go sit down somewhere or lay down and spend 5 minutes just thinking about all the things you're grateful for, and do that every day for a week or two, and you'll see changes. And that's not some big, deep, painful task to do. It's just a very simple exercise that anyone can do every day. So let's get into this. Walking away. A lot of people, before they really begin to go down a path where they're maybe becoming more self-aware, maybe they, before they do therapy or even just look stuff up on the internet or whatever, we default to maybe something to the effect of, like, we don't consider that when someone does something to us, we don't have to react in kind. So if, despite evidence to the contrary, right, we think if someone insults us, we almost have to get mad about it, right? We don't really consider that there might be an alternative or a different way or a better way, different choice, whatever. And, as we mature and grow, hopefully we begin to consider that a lot more. And I think it's certainly the case as people get older, they recognize that what other people do doesn't have to affect us in a specific way. However, while we might logically know that, it can definitely be the case where if we are dealing with trauma that's been unresolved, we might be, let's say, triggered by people doing a certain thing that just, kind of immediately sends us back, and all the thoughts from the stories and beliefs that we had from the trauma come up, and to suggest it's as simple as, oh, well, I will just make a choice in this moment. It can be really hard, even if you logically know you have a choice, to still not give in to the trigger. It can be really difficult. Like, I even now, because, healing trauma is something that is a process, and you can start with some really big things in your life, but there could be so many, like, little things which you wouldn't even call, like, necessarily even traumatic, not in the sense that we're talking about it, but just you had an experience as a kid that just kind of made you think a certain way, and is still affecting you today. Even if you did a lot of the big work, none of us are ever truly fixed, in the sense that we're Buddhas now, or Jesuses, or whatever else, or pick any, any person, Muhammad. I'm not trying to, like, be specific about any religion or exclude any others. That's not the point. Pick whoever your, big person is in history that seemed to be enlightened. Pretty much the rest of us just aren't them, right? And so we can look to them and see a better way, but we're all very human, and this is all a lifelong process. There'll probably be a point, even if I live that long, when I'm 97 or something, and something will come along and I'll be a little pissed off about it for some reason, even though it would be ideal if I wasn't affected by any outside stimulus like that, because being pissed off or angry, just you're robbing yourself of happiness. And if we do believe that we have a choice about how to feel about things, then why are you hurting yourself? Right? Like, it's almost like hitting yourself. Like, why are you hitting yourself? That's kind of dumb. But we still all do it. We're still all human, and that's kind of a frustrating thing. So, and it's even more frustrating when it's almost better if you don't know this. It's almost better to be unaware of the fact that you have a choice, because then at least you can't be mad at yourself for robbing yourself of the happiness. But unfortunately, I am, and hopefully the rest of you will be aware, because still, at the end of the day, knowing you have that choice can make your life far better, because now you are not controlled by all external circumstances. You have agency over your own life, at least in that sense. And I'm not saying that we are not sometimes a victim of circumstance or life just coming along. There are things that can certainly affect us. And at the same time, though, we do have agency, we do have free will, and we do have personal responsibility to handle it, or to choose how we're going to handle it, or all those kinds of things. So, some of the main points I want to talk about regarding, let's say, a situation comes up where, I don't know, maybe someone cuts you off as you're driving, and or let's say you we're about to miss an exit, and you didn't even mean to cut someone off, but you did, and now they're pissed off and they follow you, and you were just going to the grocery store right around the corner, and they are now in a confrontation with you because they're just having a really bad day or something, right? And now you kind of have to choose what you're going to do here. Now, again, going back to if you have some kind of trauma or grief, this could be a situation where you lose yourself because of some past event. Let's say you were bullied in school, and this person says something or does something that makes you feel smaller or little in the same way that you used to be bullied. Now you are not just in the moment trying to decide what to do, hopefully to not escalate this situation, because this could turn dangerous. Now you're also fighting yourself, right? So what can, first off, this really goes back to the point about why I feel healing trauma is important, because you're already in the situation. If you haven't resolved that shit from the past, you are only making your life harder if and when these situations come up. Now, I don't think it's the case that most of us get followed to a parking lot every day. I'm using a bit of an extreme example, but if you really look at your life, you will probably notice sometimes, maybe not every day, maybe not even every other day, but probably enough throughout the course of a week or a month where, if you really paid attention, there are things that people do that you are responding to on autopilot because of this shit from the past, right? So, first off, again, going back to yesterday, it is important to heal this stuff, but I've made that point already. As you do have a choice in the moment on how to respond, what can we say or do or think about that might give us an advantage to fight back from those internal desires to maybe escalate the situation, to not be pushed around unless it actually comes to that? I mean, if this person, again, in this theoretical situation, was coming at you trying to punch you, you should defend yourself, right? Or you should try to at least get out of it. I'm not saying you should escalate it further, but I'm certainly not advocating that you just take a bunch of punches and smile while it's happening. Some things we can do would be really trying to first recognize that we have that moment of space, right? We recognize that a stimulus has come in, and just trying to buy even half a second before we respond, that we go, wait a minute, I actually have a choice in how I respond right now. What would be a practical way to not only recognize that space, but maybe even draw it out a little bit longer to give every bit of advantage to ourselves? I would really recommend mindfulness and meditation. And a lot of people talk about meditation as, oh, it'll change your life. But they don't say how it will change your life. And it's hard to see the practical benefits of it in the moment. Especially as you're doing it, because it can kind of be frustrating. Like, why the fuck am I sitting here? Like, this is boring as shit, right? Like, you're just sitting there, and it's like, okay, is this over with yet? At least when you first get started, if you don't normally do this, it can seem pointless. It can seem frustrating. I can tell you, when I didn't understand meditation and kind of what the point was, I was getting so frustrated. It was like backfiring on me. And the reason for that was I was, the point that they were saying was, we'll just focus on the breath, or focus on a mantra, or one of these things. And every time my mind drifted somewhere else, I would get angry at myself because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. The game is not focusing on your breath or a mantra or whatever else and never letting a thought come in. You're just going to frustrate yourself that way. The game is doing those things and recognizing thoughts will come in, and the actual thing you're trying to do is catch yourself when those things happen and then go back to the breath or the mantra. And once I realized that was the game, it got a lot easier. And I'm saying it's a game, but, take it however you will. But as you meditate, let's say the first, week or two, if you're not already doing this, start at like 5 minutes. Don't go crazy with it. Don't be like, I'm going to meditate, 20 minutes a day, twice a day, or what, that is not the way to get started. And every meditation teacher will tell you that, and I will tell you that from experience. It doesn't work. If you really haven't gotten into meditation yet, you haven't gotten comfortable with it, you really need to just start off with 5 minutes, increase to like 7 minutes a few days later, then get up to 10, then maybe get to 15 or something, then 20, then maybe two times a day of 5 to 10 each, and increase those. And if you could get to 20 minutes 2 times a day, that's really not a bad place to be, but that's not a goal in the first week. That's like a 1 to 2 month goal, right? Start small, build the habit, put it in place. And I can talk about habit building another time. If you're interested in building habits, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. That is fantastic. In fact, this tattoo on my hand is related to that book, and I'll get into that story another time. But it's meditation has a twofold purpose. Number one, it gives you time each day where you are just breathing, right? You are just taking some time for yourself to not be stressed, to not be bombarded by the outside world. And if you're not frustrated by it, by like, God damn it, my mind wandered again, like, why can't I do this right? And once you understand it's not about that, it can really be a sanctuary every day and help keep you more grounded, which is especially useful, again, if you're struggling with, thoughts, fears, everything else. The other benefit is you are training yourself to be mindful of the things you're thinking about and to detach from these things. So again, while I've said that I think it's important to heal kind of the root so that you don't even have these thoughts in the first place, by being aware of them, you can see what your mind and what your stories are and everything that it's throwing out. But by sitting there in a calm place, you recognize you don't have to react in that moment. You can just observe it and look at it and go, oh, okay, that's a thought that came up, and I'm just going to let it drift on by. We don't try to hang on to it. We don't try to push it away. We just go, oh, it's there. And it's kind of like it walked into our brain and then walks out. And if we can train ourselves to detach in these calmer moments, then the more we practice there, the more we'll be ready in game time, right? And so there's a few analogies. Like in sports, you will often hear about coaches, or especially like the biggest players, the importance of practice. We don't rise, to the level of our expectations in the moment. We fall to the level of our practice or our training or our preparation. That's the truth. So, we often think in these moments, I will rise to the occasion or whatever. And it's like, if you aren't practicing at that level, you won't rise to that occasion, right? So that's number one. Also, I have a great interest in the dog training world. And one of the things that you learn early on, especially with reactive dogs, is you need to train them without external stimuli and build up to that. So if you have a dog that is struggling, you don't go to a dog park and try to train there. It's the last thing you do. You start at home where there's no distractions and you get them solid on what it is you want them to do. And then maybe, like, you started inside your house. Now maybe we go outside into like the front yard or the sidewalk or something. And maybe there's no distractions. But then maybe like a car comes by, right? But you've worked enough where it's not a big deal that the car went by. And maybe someone walks by with a dog, right? And hopefully it's not a big deal. But it could be. And then you just know your dog's not there yet, and you still need to work a little bit on, making things rock solid without that stimulus, so that when it does happen, they are so well trained otherwise that it becomes no big deal. And then perhaps you go to a friend's house who has some dogs, and so now there's a little bit more stimulus, and eventually you work up to the dog park. Okay? And the funny thing is, if you're really into dog training, you recognize, first off, that a lot of dog training is people training. And second off, you realize that we're not so much different than dogs at the very base level. So, going back to what I was talking about with meditation, you're training yourself in these moments, and you're training yourself to just detach and observe and be the observer of your thoughts and the things that are coming through, so that when those moments come along, as things come up, you are better prepared and you can recognize that a thought has come along. This person is coming at me, and not only that, they have triggered something in me, right? And if you have put in enough reps and done enough practice, and hopefully had some real world experience before this situation, that like a really a situation that has a lot of volatility, let's say, like hopefully you have been building up at work or at the grocery store or something else before you get to a situation like I'm talking about, where there's a serious confrontation. Hopefully in that moment you can catch yourself and recognize that you have the choice, that you can say, this person is having a bad day. They think I did this, and even if I did actually do it, I didn't mean it that way. Instead of responding with anger, instead of feeling small and wanting to fight back or shut down or whatever it is, I can calmly say, look, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there. I didn't mean to do this. Please, I'm not looking to escalate this, right? And we can do that in so many situations throughout life. Now, why would we want to do that, right? Well, aside from the fact that that's a pretty volatile situation where physical safety could be at risk, even, let's say, if there's a situation where that isn't the case, you're still robbing yourself and kind of robbing everyone else if you choose to react in a poor way. Again, there's a saying that's been kind of... there's different ways it's said, but the basic saying is, anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die or be harmed by it, right? You're mainly harming yourself here. You're robbing yourself of happiness, you're robbing yourself of peace, and the more that you do that, the more that then you are an angry person or a sad person or whatever else, and you are giving into these impulses, and you're just kind of fucking your own life up. If you're fucking your own life up and you are dragging yourself down in doing so, then it kind of goes back to what I was talking about yesterday in regards to self-care, where if you're not taken care of and you're low and you're struggling because you're always angry or sad or whatever else, then you can't do much for yourself and you can't do much for other people, right? So you're just keeping yourself down. Beyond that, there's a passage from the Bible, and before I continue, while I might reference that or things from other religions as well, I'm not looking to preach at people with what I'm doing here. Whatever you believe is fine. I happen to believe in a higher power. I get a lot out of religions across the board. I've been into Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, not in the sense that I would really strongly consider myself any of those things, but I've been into it because I see the wisdom and I try to extract that wisdom and apply it to my own life. So I think there's a lot of benefit in that, but if that's not you, that's totally okay. I think it does make life a little bit more of a struggle, in that you might be more prone to nihilism, but that's a totally different topic, and I'm not trying to preach or say anyone should convert or start believing in anything or anything like that. However, all these religions have serious texts that have serious wisdom, and while each of them, I know we can find something, because they were written all so long ago, that in today's times people might consider problematic, or something like that. That's not the point. We're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're not going to take some of the deepest wisdom of humanity and toss it all aside because there's a few things that we disagree with or have learned better in modern times. There's still a lot of gold to be found here. In this case, the line I'm thinking about is the meek shall inherit the earth. And over the past year or two, this popped up and someone explained it's not so much meek as in someone who is weak or small or anything like that. That's not the correct translation. The correct translation is something more like those who have swords and know how to use them but keep them sheathed will inherit the earth. Why does this matter? It matters because, let's say you're in this moment where there's a confrontation, and you kind of have three ways of being, right? Number one, you might not have a sword and not know how to use it, and you can't really be virtuous in that sense because you couldn't fight back or stand up for yourself if you tried. You are like a scared rodent. Like you can't really do anything. It's not being virtuous to not fight back if you can't fight back, because it's not your choice. The choice was already made for you based on where you are at. On the other hand, you could be completely reactive and just blow that situation up, and now we're bringing unnecessary pain, misery, or fighting, or anger, or whatever else into the world because you might have the sword, but you're constantly drawing it, right? So now you're really causing a lot of pain in how you move forward through life. The third option is being competent and being capable of fighting back, but choosing not to do it in those moments that do not call for it. Why is it important that you're able to do it in the moments that call for it, but know when to not draw your sword in the moments that don't call for it? It's important because, unfortunately, the world still has malevolence in it. And going back to the topic of walking away, while it is important it is super important if you can avoid a confrontation at all costs, there are simply times when not fighting is not an option. And not only is it not an option, I would argue it's not the right thing to do. If you see someone, let's say, let's get real here. You're walking down a dark city street, it's late at night, and you walk by an alley and there's a woman screaming and crying because she's being raped, right? You should be capable of going over and stopping that. You should be capable of going over and stopping that malevolence. That is not the time to walk away. And you could say, well, call the cops. Yeah, dial 911, but get over there because it's going to be a while probably before the cops get there. So in that moment, you do unfortunately have to react. So there are extreme cases where it's necessary, but most cases it's not necessary because it's not a confronting malevolence type situation. And in those situations, love should win. Compassion should win. Empathy should win. We should be trying to catch ourselves so that we are not responding in those moments and fighting that guy in the parking lot because he's pissed off that you cut him off when you didn't even mean to do it. Right? So I would seriously ask people to consider strengthening yourselves by healing your traumas, developing yourself through self-development, and whatever else, and not just self-development as far as working on your mind goes, but you should be capable physically to at least a certain extent. You should be capable mentally and emotionally as well, right? There should be some competence, some resilience. We don't admire strong people or victims, even though it's not a terrible thing that society nowadays has recognized the plight of victims and we want to help people. We also don't want to empower them to be victims, be like, oh, it's a victim, it's okay that you stay there. That's not what we need to be doing. We need to be encouraging people to get out of being a victim as soon as possible. We can have compassion for them, but staying there or enabling them to stay there is stupid, right? And so that is not what I'm doing or what this whole community is all about. We're trying to take you out of that to Survivor and Thriver as soon as possible, right? And again, it goes back to what I was saying yesterday. The more that you are capable of doing this, the more that you're capable of stepping up, having emotional resilience, emotional control, but being capable, the better your life is going to be, and the more capable you're going to be of helping the world just by how you are. Because while that situation might be an outlier, and an extreme situation, you are going to find smaller versions of those situations every day. And if you are not catching yourself, and if you are not choosing to walk away when it's not real malevolence, it's just someone else's pain coming out. You know, if someone would actually follow you after being cut off and like get out and start screaming at you, there's a deeper issue there than just being cut off. That's their pain and trauma coming out. If you react, you're just keeping the cycle going. So we're trying to break this cycles of pain. We're trying to break the continuation of it in what we're doing here. Right? We're trying to be mindful. We're trying to go, what is the best possible outcome in this situation? Right? The best possible outcome in that situation is diffusing the situation, is not letting ourselves get wrapped up in our emotions or feeling threatened or whatever, and simply saying, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I hope your day gets better. Have a nice day. And trying as best we can to recognize that that person is hurting for whatever reason, even though we might not see it on the surface in that moment, and they might just seem like a bully or something else. If you really, again, going back to like, if you were bullied in school, do you think your bully was like otherwise having a great life and they just chose to bully you and that was just some like aspect of their personality, that they were a giant asshole? No, most bullies have like awful lives, and their bullying is them taking their pain and trying to transmute it out onto someone else. Right? So the more that we can break that cycle, the better. So I kind of hide how many viewers there are, but if there's any questions or anyone's getting any benefit from what I'm going over here, I'd love to see it in the chat or whatever else, but I'm just kind of going with it, and I hope that this is useful to people, and I hope that people are either seeing things in a different way or being reminded, right? Because a lot of times we just need reminders of this stuff in life. I've done self-development for 15 plus years now, and there are still things where I will come back around and go, oh right, I forgot about that. I need to remember that going forward again. Things like that. So it is important. It is important on those, issues day to day, whether they're small or big. How you handle yourself matters. I'll get into this tattoo right now. The book on habits, Atomic Habits by James Clear. He was talking about mathematics and discussing something that people in mathematics or scientists or whatever will call the epsilon cost. And basically epsilon represents something that is like so tiny that it's barely measurable. And so let's say you check Facebook for 2 minutes real fast, one time in your life. That is so negligible that it doesn't matter, right? But if you check Facebook 2 minutes every 10 minutes, all throughout the day, every week, every month, all of that adds up to a problem, right? So the case he was making was to be mindful, and that everything you do matters. And that's what this tattoo means to me. It means everything you do matters. And it's on my hand because as I go to do something, I want to be reminded of that. Like, am I doing the right thing here? Am I making the right choice? It is a pattern interrupt. It's a way for me to increase my own mindfulness that, before I react, before I do something, is this the right way? Because this matters. Everything matters. How I respond to this person matters. How I get on Twitch and stream matters. How I handle myself around even interacting with the person checking me out at the grocery store, matters when they start striking up a conversation with me. And even if I'm having maybe I'm feeling rushed that day, but maybe I can still smile and have a genuine moment with them where, they're like, oh yeah, this brand's really good. And, we talk about that. And especially I'm thinking of a situation that happened just in the past week or two where I could see they were having a bad day, and I think by the end of it they were smiling a little bit, right? So even just having a genuine human connection, just talking to someone as you're paying for your groceries can really matter, and we should keep these things in mind going forward. I think that kind of summarizes a bit of what I want to say on the micro level of walking away. I'm going to take a second to breathe, and this is not sponsored by LaCroix, but this is good shit. Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes the micro. So let's talk about the macro level. This is going to be not awesome for me because I'm about to get into some of the shit that I dealt with when I was going through the worst trauma of my life. And it's important to note that I'm going to talk about my ex, who I am divorced from as of the past year. Took a while to get there because of COVID, but we separated a few years ago. And this is someone who it's really important to note that I don't have any anger towards. I believe in what I'm talking about in regards to forgiveness, and so much of what I'm talking about here because I know the power of it from going through this process because of what happened. And I can wish this person the best, and I have compassion for them, and I hope that they have an amazing life going forward. When this person betrayed me, it completely blindsided me. I had no idea it was coming, and we were literally 2 weeks away from making a cross-country move and starting a completely new life together. And I mean, that not only fucked that up a bit and fucked me up, but then the next 6 months it was continual betrayal after lie, after this, after that. Like, it just kept going for a while. And I don't want to sit here and go too deep into why, but they were kind of having a bit of a 6 month long mental breakdown, basically. And it could almost be described as malicious, if not for the fact that they were really in their own hell for whatever reason too. And the thing is that led to 3 years of hell for me, partially because it was so shattering and so it broke reality for me. It was when someone betrays you, it everything you thought you knew up until that point, all the truth you thought, it immediately it vanishes. And so you are now not only hurt, but you don't even know what's real. Right? Now, the interesting thing is, and I think a lot of us do this, someone on the outside looking at my situation, if I was looking at my situation on the outside, I'd be like, leave. Why are you even remotely trying or staying with this person? Like, there's nothing worse than this. Like, you should absolutely not stay with this person. But when we're in the moment, we have all these fears. We have all these thoughts And again, if you already happen to be struggling with unresolved trauma, situations like this just kind of reaffirm that, and also those things can come and keep you trapped because you are afraid, right? So you might have learned lessons that you're not good enough or not worthy enough. If something comes along that really lays you low, or someone breaks your trust or something, it just reinforced that. If you are afraid of being abandoned, although you will know what happened was wrong, that fear might win and you might still want to stay with that person. If you fear looking dumb or something like that, you might stay in a situation because you don't want people to know how bad it is, and you don't want them to see the real situation with you, how it really is fucked up. And it is so difficult because you're wrestling with so many things in these bigger situations where it's like, what should I do? Right? Because if we're talking about, should I walk away? Should I finally let go? Should I finally give this up? Chances are something has built up over time to where it's now reaching a breaking point. And the worst thing is, you now are fighting with possibly false beliefs and possibly false lessons or stories or anything else that are going to make you want to stay there or justify it or come up with excuses or whatever else. Let's say you're in a bad relationship and you might go, I don't understand this when I hear it from a lot of women specifically, and it's like, well, he doesn't beat me. And he's not supposed to beat you. That doesn't mean things are good. That's the bare minimum. The bare minimum is that you don't get physically abused by your partner. And the same goes for men with women too. I'm not saying it can't happen to the other side, but like that's not a justification. That should be completely put to the side. But we do these things. We come up with, well, it could be so much worse, right? And we try to minimize our pain, and we try to minimize the struggle. And the problem is, as we do that, if a situation has already gotten to this point, it's only going to keep getting worse. If we don't walk away now, more and more reasons are going to pile up to where it really reaches a breaking point. And generally, then it's even worse when you do actually have to walk away. Now, the problem is there's a balance with that, right? Because, things can get bad, but if you can catch them early on, maybe it doesn't get out of hand. And if not just you, but maybe other people involved are willing to work on things and work for a greater overall good, maybe it never has to reach those breaking points, right? But especially in regards to relationships, it matters that both people care. But I can certainly say, going back to my own experience with this, the fact was that while I was a bit trapped because of some certain circumstances, with many things in my life going wrong all at the same time, I still could have made the decision to walk away and moved on much quicker, much more quickly. And I didn't, because a lot of these fears held me back. What will people think? Yeah, this relationship was supposed to be, it. And a lot of people knew that about me in my life, that this, relationship was it. And I thought the world of this person. What does that mean about me if this fails? What will people think? Does this mean I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, right? All these different fears will keep you from walking away in these moments. And I think that there's something to be said for the fact that maybe everything kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, because I had to learn a lot in those 3 years before I got to a point where not much later we did finally call it quits. But it is the case that it's possible that that could have gotten handled a lot. I would have saved myself a lot of pain if I arrived at that conclusion a lot sooner. Right? We were just kind of stuck in a situation that was going nowhere, and if I had just let go of my beliefs about what should be, if I had let go of what my egos, it was kind of a two-part thing. There's your fears and your doubts and insecurities, and also like your ego, which are both arguing against you doing possibly what you know on some deep level to be the right thing to do. Or you may even know you need to do it, but you feel like you need to do it a certain way to feel okay about it, or things like that, which is fine. Everyone's situation is different. I'm not saying if you know something is wrong right now, you need to immediately get out of it. There is a process to some of this stuff. But going forward, I know I won't keep myself in a situation like that where I know I should walk away, because I know it only gets worse the longer you drag that on, right? You will have fears where it's like, the thing is, we prefer the known. Why will we watch movies a second or third time or something as opposed to watching a new movie? I'm not saying everyone does that, but there's a good amount of people who would rather watch something they've already seen before because they know they like it, as opposed to watching something new and potentially being disappointed with it, right? We prefer the known. We prefer the security. We prefer the comfort. And it may just be because of my own experience with this, and it could also be, again, being that I am not exactly secular, but am spiritual and believe in a higher power. There's a funny quote that something like religion is for people who are afraid of hell, and spirituality is for people who have already been to hell. And I think there's a truth to that. It may be because I believe that inner voice, like that heart voice, is always telling us the right way to go. And unfortunately, sometimes that means we have to walk away from a friend or a partner or a job and do something unknown because that situation has become untenable or not right, or whatever the case is. And so if you can maybe get to a point where you can, again, going back to the mindfulness and meditation stuff, recognizing that those thoughts are maybe coming from your mind, your fears or your ego or whatever else, and being detached from it, and recognizing that your brain's just always going, right? But we often, either from our sub or unconscious, or again from our heart, if you want to call it like that, or as a Christian might call it, the Holy Ghost or something like that. I would just advise people, if you're struggling with walking away from something, to recognize if you're hearing that from deep down. It can be hard to sort through that sometimes. I know it's like, is this coming from my head, my heart? There's these competing thoughts. This is tough, and then on top of that, you have your fears. You don't want to be alone. You don't want to lose what you have. This is bad, but it's not super bad, and it could be much worse. At least I have someone right now. I have this friend in my life. I don't want to give them up, because if then they won't be there anymore. And I'd rather have something that's just mediocre or okay or even bad as opposed to not at all, right? But the two things that I keep coming back to in these situations are it usually only gets worse and doesn't work out in the long run if you've reached that point, and also a belief that if you're feeling that way deep down, I believe that is always guiding me personally to the best possible outcome, and it might be worth it, if you're watching this and you're struggling with these things, to try adopting that same belief that that voice is always trying to lead you towards the best possible outcomes, whatever you believe that voice is, whether it's the voice of God, it's just your subconscious, whatever it is. I don't even personally necessarily give a shit what it is. It just seems to always be right. In fact, Steve Jobs gave a commencement speech once, and I really like this story because it illustrates this. And I do want to get to what someone just said in the chat, but I want to just finish this point real fast. He gave a commencement speech, and he was talking about being in college and how he wasn't enjoying some of the classes that he was enrolled to. And he said he dropped out of the ones he wasn't interested in, but then dropped into ones that he was interested in. And he just kind of went with his heart, right? And one of them was a calligraphy class. And he was just really interested or fascinated by this. And literally because of that, years down the road, Apple computers were the first ones with fonts because of what he learned there, because of his interest there. Prior to that, it was all just, basic one font, the green characters on a black screen or whatever. You couldn't change it to like anything that looked even like cursive or Comic Sans or anything like that, Times New Roman. It was just that kind of system font, right? How interesting that he couldn't have known back then that his interest there would lead to fonts being on computers. I mean, we take that for granted, but think about how massive it is that we have fonts on computers, right? That is a big, big deal. That it didn't exist before that, and it was years before. He just knew, this is interesting to me. This is something I want to do, and it led to something that truly, as far as computers go, is revolutionary. And the point he kind of ended with was just always listen to your heart. It somehow always knows what to do or what the right thing to do is. So if you're struggling with walking away on more of a macro level from a big situation, I'm certainly not telling anyone right now in this moment, just walk away from your friendship or your relationship or your job or your this or your that or this toxic family member, anything like that. There's, if nothing else, some thought about the best way to do that if you do become resolved to do it. But I truly believe that so many of the problems we cause ourselves in life are because we hang on to things for too long. And we don't trust that if we give up something that's not as good, that a void will be created and different things will come in and take their place. And the longer you hold on to something bad, the more you're robbing yourself of something good coming into your life as well. So, this person, Fort Flap, thank you for chatting. I want to stream, but I'm fat and ugly and people will laugh at me. I hate how I sound, how I look. I feel like I'm fake. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I can tell you that I've had all of those issues. And if not for the fact that I have gotten on video for the past 5+ years with my job where I worked from home, worked remotely with clients, so I have done more Zoom calls than I can count way before the pandemic started. I have done explainer videos where I would just record myself talking about what's on my screen, and I've been a guest as an expert in various capacities on podcasts and live video streams and things like that with other people. I would probably not I don't know if I'd be so comfortable doing what I'm doing right now, and even yesterday was a little bit of anxiety because you're starting something new. You hope it goes well. Those are normal human things, but Um, I think we should break down what you said there into a few different parts, right? So you're kind of concerned about some of the things as far as physical appearance, which I can totally relate to, and I'm not trying to make light of your fears and whatnot, but what was it, Monday, I went and got my haircut at the usual person, and she cut my beard like way shorter than I wanted, and like the first thing I'm thinking about is like, oh no, I'm gonna have to get on camera now, and like my beard isn't the way I want it, and all this kind of stuff. And that is maybe a smaller thing, but I've had all those other same thoughts, going backwards from that, and they're still even there. And then, someone pointed out, they're like, people aren't going to be there to look at your beard. They're going to be there to listen to what you have to say. Now, on a certain level, I am kind of disappointed about that, because I do feel the beard is pretty awesome. Or was, back until it got trimmed a little bit too much. But there are a lot of streamers that have been really successful that have been overweight or maybe didn't look the best or whatever. And why is that? It's because they had something really good to say. Either their personality was good, or the information was good, or whatever else. So I'm going to address this in a few different parts. First off, it's certainly not the case that you'll fail right off the bat because of those things, right? There's evidence out there that we can look at, and we know that's not the case. But you seem to be dealing with some deeper things here, where you're really struggling because you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're feeling like a loser, and all that kind of stuff. So where I would start is asking, we'll start with a few questions, and we'll see what we can do here live. All right? You say, I'm a loser, I don't feel comfortable under my own skin, I have low self-confidence. Why is that the case, and have you even begun doing anything to address that, maybe aside from watching this stream right now? And I'll try to give you some time to answer. Don't know why it's the case, just how I grew up. Okay, so are no girls like me? Okay, feel worthless. Got it. So I don't know if you checked out the stream yesterday, but a lot of what I'm talking about is trauma, especially from childhood, how that can affect things, how it can, we carry lessons we learned with us. I'm guessing when you say maybe just how I grew up, while there may have been some big traumatic event, there could have also been, let's say, like little bits of grief or trauma, in the sense that, maybe you weren't beaten, but perhaps your parents like regularly guilt tripped you or about not being good enough or something. Is it anything like that? I mean, you don't have to get too specific. This is public, and I don't want you to say anything you don't feel comfortable with. But you can certainly grew up in a narcissistic house. Okay. Okay, so you would have learned, unfortunately, as a child, some always living in constant fear. Yeah. First off, I am so sorry. Okay? I can really empathize. And I know how hard that is. And I know, especially growing up as a child, I touched on this yesterday, your brain isn't fully developed, right? And there's a reason why, as we grow up more and more, parents pull back more and more and need to let you do things. But when you're a little kid, like, parents really need to take care of you, right? Because you're not capable of doing things on your own. Your brain's not fully developed. You are susceptible to basically any input. Only person I was close with was my father, but he died 11 years ago. trauma with that. Yeah, so you've got a lot of things going on, and to be clear, I'm not going to be able to solve this live with you right now, because there's going to obviously be a lot more work to it, and I think we probably know that, right? But I would really I would really encourage you to simply believe on some level, even if there's competing thoughts or competing beliefs, that this can get better. Right? Just by interacting with me right here, you've taken a positive step towards that being the case. So props to you. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't go through a lot of not exactly similar but different situations as you did, of feeling worthless, feeling unlovable, all those kinds of things, and getting to the point where I am now with a lot of what I'm talking about, and I'll even go so far as to say preaching on this channel. Ultimately, if you have trauma, as you stated, there's going to need to be deep work there. And depending on what it is, I don't mean to turn this into a pitch for myself, because you can go see therapists, you can go do a whole lot of things, and you can even begin to take steps on your own if that's not possible for you for some reason right now. However, you are going to need to address that, right? You are going to need to address those bigger traumas, which I think will clear up a lot of these bigger issues. But that's not something that can be done in a setting like this, and it can't be done in 5 minutes. However, what can be done in 5 minutes, where I might be able to help you out right now, is just start taking the first step, right? So let's figure out what that first step might be for you, right? You said you feel worthless, you're not comfortable in your own skin. Is there anything that you've thought of that might be a first step in solving that? Working out losing weight, I guess. Okay. Have you begun taking any steps to do that? No. Okay. Why have you not taken any steps to do that yet? Lazy and scared too. What are you afraid of? People judging me when I'm working out. Is there any scenario you can think of where that doesn't happen? Do it at home. Perfect. I do that, by the way. I don't have the time to go to the gym, in my opinion. I actually have a squat rack and a bench and weights in the other room. As you can see over here, I have a treadmill, which actually is for this guy half the time, because I have him treadmill trained, and I live in Phoenix, so it was too hot in the summer, and he still needed to get exercise, but now that it's cooled off, we're outside and running around a little bit more. You don't have room at home, you have a small apartment upstairs. Do you have even a, let's say, 4x6 space of clear space? No clear space at all. I live with a roommate. Lots of stuff. Is the roommate home at all hours that you are? Roommate is a hoarder. Man, you've got some barriers here. All right. Do you have your own room at least? No, I know you're not making this up. I'm really trying to help you. Single bed apartment. So you guys share the same room. Oh, you have the living room. But this person is hoarding and keeping stuff in your space? Or no? Why is it the case that you're allowing them to infringe on your space? Roommate is stepmom. Okay. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more difficult. Is there any situation where this person can be talked to about some of these items that you want to clear out even just a little bit of your own space? And what did they say? Okay. Do you have time? Okay. Is it the case where some of this stuff, if it were like packed in boxes well, you could cut down the clutter to where it would be just like organized into boxes? You don't even have to throw stuff out. That's not even what I'm arguing. Most impacts in boxes, but everything is a mess. Okay. Do you have even remotely any other options to store this stuff? Like, right, most of it's not your stuff, but it is infringing on your space. Is there a reason why, like, are you indebted to this person where you can't make a claim to your space? You get what I'm saying? Like, if they allowed you to live there and it was their place, then it'd be hard to argue like you have a claim to your space. But if you were splitting the costs evenly, it'd be like, this is my space and your stuff is in my space, right? So I'm asking, it's her place, but we split evenly. Okay, so is it the situation where you can't leave for some reason? Can't afford it at the moment. Okay. That sounds like a really tough situation. And one issue, when we kind of unravel it, there's a whole bunch of issues going on here, right? You're stuck in a place where you're almost a little trapped because you can't afford to move out. This person it's her place, and even though you're contributing to it, there's an imbalance in the power dynamic. I mean, it is a tough situation, though, right? that's tough, man. Or woman. Or whatever you identify with. I don't know. I'm assuming there, and I shouldn't have done that. It's tough to feel trapped. It's tough to not feel like you're comfortable in your own skin. It's tough to feel unworthy or unlovable, that even if you have bigger desires or dreams or anything like that, you have all these fears holding you back. You have all this trauma that is keeping you to where it's like, I don't even want to go to the gym. And trust me, I personally, being someone who's introverted, don't even like the idea of the gym either. I don't want to be around other people working out or doing anything like that. I like being in my own space where I can just get on the treadmill and do it as needed when needed. I don't have to wait for any machines. I don't have to, kind of be, let's say, inconvenienced by other people, things like that. And I can look as goofy and awful as I want, dripping sweat, being out of breath or whatever after running on the treadmill or whatever else, right? So I understand those feelings and thoughts. I grew up similarly, where it got to a point where I hated how I looked as a teenager. In my 20s, I was far more overweight at one point in my life than what you see. I'm 6'1". I was up to 285 pounds at one point. When I was with my ex-wife, I was huge. I've lost a lot of weight since then, and so I know what it's like to be there, where it's like I'm fat, I'm ugly, I don't want anyone even looking at me, and I was so small out at the store. I was always hiding, always, don't look at me, don't look at me. I could never get on camera and stream at that time. I didn't want anyone taking my picture, anything like that. I know, and at the same time, while I had more space than you do, that person that I was with was not necessarily a hoarder, but not super awesome about keeping things organized or clean, let's say. And so I've been there. I actually have been, and the things that I did to get out of it. I was lucky enough to get into a situation where I got a job where I was working out of town, and I did have some of my own space. And I started with the most basic habits, right? Now, one thing to note is that most of weight loss is done in the kitchen rather than at the gym. So even if you can't do much, what you can do is control what you eat and how you eat and all that kind of stuff. And you might say, well, but this person cooks, right? Well, you can begin to calorie count or weigh portions. You can go, if you don't have a small kitchen scale already, you can get them for like $10 on Amazon. Like there's a bare minimum here and if you don't have $10, you should find a way to scrounge that together, right? Like you have to at least find a way, if this matters to you, to take some small steps in a positive direction. If that's weighing your food out, which is what I was doing, if stuff wasn't pre-measured already, that I had calories and whatnot, you can begin there. At the end of the day, like I said, you are going to need to do some deeper work, and this is something where I don't want to just throw out general things, and I don't want you to necessarily get too much more specific about your story. You're welcome to hop into the Discord, and if you go in there and then message me privately, we can continue this, and I can give you some ideas and tips and everything. Just don't want more of your personal I don't want to be recommending things that might not be applicable, and I'd probably like to find out a little bit more before I start throwing out suggestions, just so that they're pertinent and helpful. It would be kind of irresponsible for me to do it in any other way. But when I was there, it's like, how do you even start taking those first steps to getting out of it? How do you even start to looking at your food intake? Or, again, honestly, you don't have to work out on a treadmill or something like that. Something worth doing is just getting up and walking around the neighborhood. You have, like, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer. I'm guessing you have a smartphone. Most of us do at this point. If you don't, even a basic Casio watch, something that tells time, that has an alarm of some kind. I'm going to set a 5-minute alarm, and I'm going to walk this direction. And when the 5 minutes comes up, I'm going to do a 180, and I'm going to walk 5 minutes back the other way, because that's how long it took. That was 10 minutes of walking, and that's a place to start, depending on just how overweight you are. I don't know. But even then, I'd start only at 10 minutes, because you need to build a habit here of doing this. You don't want to be like, I'm going to walk for half an hour today, right? It's the same thing. All the people who make New Year's resolutions for weight loss, I'm going to go to the gym every day this week, and like, they're all gone after the first week because they went way too hard and it was too much and they're miserable and all that kind of stuff, when they really should have gone and been like, I'm just going to walk in. And then if I'm there, I might do 5 to 10 minutes on treadmill, right? And then the next day a little more and a little more and a little more. It's so important when changing your life or building habits or taking these practical steps like I'm talking about. Not the big deep work that I think you probably need to do, but just these practical steps to get started, to gain some momentum. Baby steps. Baby steps. Don't go big, right? I'm tired of feeling... Yeah. I know what it's like to be tired of feeling like that, and you are going to have to make a choice if continuing to feel like that is more important than people looking at you walk around the block. And you, like I said, you don't even have to start there. You don't even have to do that. It could just all start in the kitchen where no one can see you but you. But if you're tired of feeling like this, you have to get real with yourself and decide if your fears or your life are more important. And that's a question that only you can answer, not me. Because the truth is that a lot of this stuff, a lot of the changes that I made didn't require me going out in public and being potentially laughed at. Now I got to this point where I'm now streaming, and I guess someone could have laughed, but I would have never done this. What was that? 12, 13 years ago now? I think it was back then. I was in my mid-20s when all this went down. I'm in my mid to late 30s now. So it became a thing where I had to make a choice. I had to say, am I better than this? Do I think I'm better than this? And not in a sense of my ego. Am I worth caring about more than I do currently for myself? If you're not on your own side, who else will be or should be? Right? And so, yesterday I recommended briefly, I was talking about gratitude, and I brought in the idea of repeating the mantra of I love myself over and over as a self-care thing. And it comes from a book by a guy named Kamal Ravikant called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And this guy was having major health problems and financial problems, and like he was feeling on the verge of death when he decided to make a vow to love himself. And it just became as simple as repeating this over and over to get it into his head. And I think that might be a practical step that you could take right now, where if you do this throughout the day, and just do it for a minute or two, if whenever you're feeling less than or bad or fearful or whatever else, try to think, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. It's okay to not be where you want to be right now. Right? It's okay. It's not okay that you learn the lessons you did as a child growing up and all that kind of stuff, but that's not your fault, right? It is your responsibility now to take care of it, unfortunately, and to work towards making that better. Thank you. Um, but you shouldn't. I would argue to you that it's important that you don't say, I'm a loser. Okay? You're not a loser. Because if you say that, you're just reinforcing that to yourself. Maybe you're in a situation right now where there are things you want to fix and make better. Maybe there are aspects about yourself that you want to change. Give yourself some grace that maybe you had not an ideal upbringing, where as a kid, when you couldn't do any better, when you couldn't know any better, you learned lessons that have stayed with you to where you are now in your life. Okay? And those things aren't your fault. And you are showing massive courage right now, even if behind a monitor, to say, these are all the things going wrong in my life, and laying it out there, and you're looking for help, and you're looking for solutions, and looking for things that you can do to turn it around and change it. Right? That takes courage. That takes especially to just say this all out loud in a public chat to me like this, that you should really give yourself some credit here, that you're in a tough position and you aren't giving up and you aren't giving in, and you have some hope, or are reaching out or looking for answers that something could get better. So if you just say, I'm a loser, and you just identify as that, you're not doing yourself any favors. It's like, yeah, there might be things that could get better, but I am also someone who is trying to take steps forward. I'm looking for answers, and I might not be there yet, but that's okay. Because quite frankly, none of us are ever really there. Even the people who seem mega successful, they always have something else to do, somewhere else to go. And even if they've mastered something in one area, then there's other areas that they still need to do. Exactly what Teddy's saying. You showed up and you were vulnerable. You know how hard it is to be vulnerable? Especially when you have trauma? It is brutally difficult because you have so many fears, so many intrusive thoughts. So, really, everyone should be applauding you right now, that even if you think you're a loser or anything like that, that you stepped up and did all this is really big. You should be really proud of yourself right now. And I think if you just start with the smallest things. If you can afford a few books, I would recommend Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And I think it would help if you begin to build at least a few decent habits. And you don't even need to read Atomic Habits. James Clear has a blog where he has talked about habit formation for like ever. He's been blogging for I think like 10 years now. The book was just the culmination of it all. There's a few other great resources on building habits, but honestly, if you really look into it, you want to anchor a habit somehow. So if you already have an existing habit, you kind of want to anchor a new habit onto that, because as you do the existing habit, then it's like, oh, now it's time to do this new habit, right? To lock that new habit in. And you just want to start as small as possible. You want to start, again, the habit isn't even I'm going to go walk around the block for 10 minutes. The habit is I'm going to put my running shoes on or walking shoes on, whatever. And then you can take them off if you want, and just do that for a few days, even if you want, if you can't get out the door that first day. And then if you do get out the door, do 5 minutes, right? And soon you will be building up to where it's 5, 10, 15, 20. And you are also inoculating yourself against the fears of going out and doing it, right? Because you were saying, well, I'm afraid to kind of go out in public. Well, if you can even just go out for 5 minutes consistently a few days, then it won't be so bad to do 10 minutes the next time. And you will start to see little bits of progress, and just hang on to that progress, right? You're in a tough situation, but something I touched on yesterday was believing that this situation might be working out for you and to your benefit and making you stronger and better, right? So if you're starting, one of the things that I don't want to say I'm necessarily proud of, but I take some maybe solace in, is I just described that I was in a situation similar to you, and you're telling me now that you look up to me, which thank you. If I just started here, there'd be nothing to be proud of, and there'd be no foundation, no work done, everything I'm saying here would be a whole bunch of bullshit, and none of you would take me seriously. Because who the fuck am I to talk to any of you if I haven't gone through any of, like, real shit, right? Then I just have knowledge. I don't have wisdom, and I don't have experience, right? And there's nothing to be proud of. Even if the knowledge is right, there's no way I can truly empathize or connect. But if I started and I went through all this stuff, and now I'm here, it's something that I can look back, and the person that you can turn into from this journey is built on hard-earned and won victories through experience. And you will look back, if you make a decision today to even begin to change the littlest things, if this is just the catalyst to change a little bit of your eating habits, a little bit of this, that, the other thing, a little bit of maybe even trying to talk to your stepmom. And again, it's not, we need to clean this all up. It's, can we look at one thing? Or one box. It will take 5 minutes. Right? And maybe they're not ready for that. And maybe you're not ready to have that conversation, but hopefully you can get there someday. But you don't go, let's clean this whole room. That's never going to work. Can we make a decision about the 3 items in this box over here? Okay, we're going to keep them all? Okay, that's fine. And then maybe a few days later, can we do this next box? And everything is slow, incremental progress, but it all adds up over time, and you will look back, and if you begin to take some steps, I promise you can go from, I am overweight and I hate myself and I'm not comfortable in my own skin, I can't stream, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm a loser, to being at this point where it's almost like, and I know this is going to sound a little weird, and again, I could have never said this while I was in it, either with what was going on recently where I was betrayed by my ex or any other point in my life, but it's almost like, thank God this all happened to me. And it sounds a little crazy. Thank God I went through all these traumas. Because the act of recovering from that, or developing myself, or getting past all that and all these other things, turned me into a person that I can not just love because I'm on my own side, but love because I'm in integrity with what I think the highest good is, of helping other people, of making the world a better place. And it totally justifies all the suffering that happened in the past and continues to happen now. And when I started this, I said, you know, even though I've worked with people already prior to streaming as a life coach, it is one of those things where it's like, if this helps even just one person, it's totally worth it. And I know you said thank you, and I'm hoping that you got just a little bit of help out of this. And if so, that has made all of today and all of yesterday and all the work I did on the website and all the cramming and everything I've done over the past few weeks getting ready to do this worth it and more. So I encourage you to have some enthusiasm that everything you've gone through could be working for you and could be so great for you, actually, weirdly enough. It might be hard to see that right now. And that if you should not just think of yourself only as a loser or overweight or whatever. There's so much more to you than that. There's also courage there, courage to be vulnerable right now, courage to start taking the tiniest steps forward for yourself and for others. And by that I mean even if you really are just doing it for yourself right now, that you might get to a point where you're good, and that's making the world a better place. And that's really the philosophy I've been trying to preach recently, is that the better you're doing, the more that we can pay that forward. It's a win-win situation. You're winning and everyone else is winning too because of it, right? And be proud of yourself for even beginning to take little steps. And I hope that you check in, join the Discord, check in with me. I'd like to see, if you have a win. In fact, I'm going to make a wins channel in the Discord after this. And what we're going to do is, if anyone has any wins, I put my walking shoes on today and I went out for 5 minutes, or I had a difficult conversation with a friend because they have been doing something that's been annoying me, and I've been fearful of confronting them about it and what the repercussions of that might be, but I knew I had to do it, and whatever the little wins are, I hope we all start talking about that and supporting one another with it, but be proud of that, right? So, thank you. Thank you for everything you said. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being you. Good job. Well, heart to you too. It's been almost about 2 hours, which is what I was aiming for. And I'm not sure that there's really anywhere else to go after that. I think that sounds like a pretty cool stopping point. And like I said at the top of this, I'm aiming to do this Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. That'll happen next week, more regularly. Hopefully I won't be late getting on. We'll see. I'm going to try to make all this video and everything a little bit better, a little more graphics, all that kind of stuff. Thank you again to everyone who watches, everyone who follows, everyone who participated. It means a lot, honestly. And I may stream here and there at night too, playing games or doing what else. The official stuff, as far as talking about coachy type stuff, trauma, grief, all that kind of stuff, that'll happen on the regularly scheduled stuff, but you might catch me playing really old cartoony MMOs or New World or something like that over the coming nights. So if you want to hang out when I go live, stop in, check around. We can banter as I'm playing games and stuff too. So think I'm going to end here and let this little guy out. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful weekend. God bless to you, and God bless all of you. And thanks, everyone. Take care.